Otherwise, I'd have to bring you down to earth too. I know this verse hurts you. I tell you what, I give you advice. I'm feeling nice. Your vices could influence your writing if you weren't biting. Y'all trying to be people that.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Today we're going to be talking about WWE rivals Edge, John Cena. So, they set this thing up as the modern day Hogan versus the modern day Roddy Piper. And I think it did them both a disservice. I like the Edge and John Cena rivalry, but to compare it to Hogan and Piper, I mean, just come on. Come on. Let's not do that. But they corrected themselves later by basically saying, hey, Cena was a really strong babyface character who needed a really strong heel character, and that was Edge, and it worked. And so, therefore, I can respect that. The whole modern day Hogan, modern day Piper, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole. That ain't gonna work. But saying that these two guys helped make each other, yes, I think that's true. I think that's really had a good point, because Cena was having a difficult time in 2005 after he became the guy. Everything they tried to do with Cena would not work. It did not work. He put him against Angle, he put him against Jericho. He got booed both times. They put him in the ring with Attitude Era favorites, kind of bridges from that generation to this generation, at the time, that generation. And it didn't work out. He was hated by that audience. And, this was the same guy who had been cheered against them a year later. Or a year earlier, I mean. So things were suffering with Cena. And Edge was a guy who was also from the Attitude Era, but was a younger guy. He wasn't pushed to the top at that point. So they showed some footage of Edge's training sessions at the Funkin' Dojo. And Cena, who was wearing an orange tie. And I don't know what's up with John Cena. Every time I see him in this suit now, he just doesn't look like John Cena. He looks like a Bond villain. He's always got that orange tie. What is up with the orange tie, man? The orange tie just grabs my attention every single time. Every time I see him in this blue suit with this orange tie, I just think that John Cena is about to push a button and destroy half the planet. It must have been that time I saw him speaking Mandarin. That must have been the only... I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, Cena in his blue suit and orange tie, which is really weird. He was drinking like... what was he drinking? Like whiskey? Anyway, he was talking about how much he adored Edge and the evolution of the Edge's character from being sort of the rage, tortured soul to Edge and Christian, the evolution, and how he threw in a sense of humor. But Edge was also a character who made his reputation through violent matches. Cena, his upbringing was a little bit rougher, going through OVW, had you couldn't really see his wittiness and his humor in his early presentation, but you could see his energy and his passion and his intensity. Then he transferred to the Doctor of Thugonomics, and he had to be comfortable talking, being the best version of himself, as he say. Then they skipped to the heel turn, Edge's heel turn, him becoming obsessed with winning the world title and winning the Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 21. Paralleled that with John Cena winning his first world title at WrestleMania 21. And oddly enough, this is a really weird decision. With that, JBL says he was the guy who was tasked with taking John Cena to the main event. It was his job to push John Cena for 20 to 30 minutes, to give him these long matches, and to show Vince that Cena could be featured in longer length matches. And I'm thinking, why in the world would you pick Bradshaw? Or like you had Eddie Guerrero on the roster, you had Kurt Angle on the roster, you had Chris Jericho on the roster, you had Shawn Michaels on the roster, you had all of these great workers on this roster, and you chose Bradshaw. He's going to be the guy that's going to be the guy that make our guy. But at least they had a good reasoning behind it. Because later in the story, you find out that, Bradshaw was old school heel. Didn't really want merchandise, didn't want fans to like him. And that this philosophy actually helped Cena. Because it's not somebody trying to be cool and cut into his business. It's somebody who is focused almost solely on doing the best he can to be as disliked as possible. And that's something that Edge would take up later and what made him such a great foil for Cena. So, Cena says that he just wanted to do the best he could during his first run as champion. It didn't really click with him at that point in time. And Edge said that WrestleMania 21 was a changing of the guard. Because Batista won, he beat Triple H. The Money in the Bank put him to the main event. Even though you had Kurt Angle beating Shawn Michaels, even though Undertaker beat Randy Orton, it was still a match that elevated Randy Orton. So WrestleMania 21, in retrospect, really launched the careers of a lot of guys. So this was very interesting. It's my favorite WrestleMania too, so I'm very well taking that head canon and running with it. So they skip sort of there. They mentioned for the first time in the whole 3 hours that Edge had been on screen that the rated R superstar would not have worked without Lita. And that, Lita completed the Edge package. That Edge had already had the obsession with becoming the world champion, but there's only so much of that you can do. Now he's got the Money in the Bank briefcase. Still, he's not quite there yet. But when they added Lita, okay, now, you've got a pair. You got somebody else for him to play off of. You got somebody else for him to talk to. You have another storyline. They didn't mention Matt Hardy at all. They still would not get there when it comes to talking about why Edge has so much heat. But they said, well, okay, now they're blurring the lines with him and Lita. So now Edge is in his complete form, the rated R superstar. And Cena's in his complete form, Chain Gang, John Cena, whatever. New Year's Revolution, these two collide. Cena wins the Elimination Chamber match, in which I absolutely think was a burial of both Carlito and Chris Masters, that Cena beat them both together at the end of the show. I mean, it's ridiculous. No, he should not have lost the match. But just to put him in there with two heels and beat them both is kind of insane to me. Cena loses the title. Edge wins his first championship. And Cody is like, anyone who doubted Edge, surely they couldn't doubt him anymore at this point. And the question is, no, they still did, of course, because Edge is seeking to make himself undeniable. That's what Beth said. At this point, Edge was sort of undeniable with the amount of heat that he had, and it worked. He really struck gold as the champion. But as we know, main event in WrestleMania against John Cena wasn't going to work. He was only champion for 3 weeks. Royal Rumble 2006, Cena defeats Edge, wins the title back. And this really pissed Edge off because he felt like, hey, business had gone up. Everything was going in the right direction. People wanted to see Cena kill me, and we should make them wait till WrestleMania for that. But there's a certain degenerate backstage who was kind of like, nah, that WrestleMania main event is mine, sir. So you need to go ahead and cough up that belt. So he did, of course. Then it became, how do we get back to Cena and Edge? They skipped over the fact that Edge spent that time from April to, July? Late June, feuding with the ECW guys. Cena was on top working with, top guys at this point. One night stand, Rob Van Dam versus John Cena. The crowd hates John Cena. And Edge helps Rob Van Dam win the title. Okay, great. This is another notch in their storyline. Edge didn't forget that Cena screwed him out of the title. Beat him for the title, rather. They're working their way back to it. Then, of course, Rob Van Dam gets busted with drugs. And he has to drop the belt. So they do the triple threat match on Raw, where Edge hits John Cena with the title, pins Rob Van Dam, wins the belt second time. Cheap tactics, which is great. And we learned that the cheap tactics are going to continue. It's going to become a running theme with Edge. Now, they talked about the Edge segment where he went to West Newbury, where he inevitably slaps the tar out of John Cena Sr., the father of John Cena. And it was all about adding layers to Edge's character. Edge is, very intelligently spoke that, okay, the championship was the goal. Now he's achieved the goal. What's the next step? What what can you add to the character now that the character has achieved his goal? And now it's Edge is on top of the world. He feels like he's unstoppable. He doesn't have any boundaries. I did a video, feel free to look into it, on what's called the lover. It's the archetype. And the lover always is pushing the boundaries, always breaking what's considered normal boundaries. Because the lover is part of the artist, that's what I call it. I call it the artist, I think. But the lover is the underpinning archetype. And they always want to go to the next level. They always want to see how far they can go. So you have Edge, who is a guy who has stole his best friend's girlfriend, already breaking that boundary. That's what got him so much heat in the first place. But now he has gotten the title, but that's not enough for him. He wants to humiliate John Cena. So now he goes and he violates John Cena's childhood home. Now, I'm guessing that's his childhood home. We don't know for sure if that's actually where he grew up. But theoretically, it's where his father lives, so we can say that it's his childhood home. And he is going to smack John Cena Sr., of course, the ultimate in disrespect, putting his hands on this man's father. So we see Edge, and he's pushing the limits, and this is great because it's great for his character. He's found a lane that he can go into. Now, Edge at this point had already pushed the boundaries in terms of decency and vulgarity and stuff like this with the rated R superstar character anyway, because now he had already done by this point the angle with Beulah, where he was humping Beulah, and he had already gone far with the violence and had the blood matches with Foley and Tommy Dreamer and all these guys. So he's already pushed the concept of wrestling matches, showed his toughness and everything. That he's a badass. He can do whatever he wants. He's got the hot girl. So even if you find a way to challenge him, the hot girl will stab you in the kidneys or something like that. He's got his femme fatale with him. So now this is really good stuff. And Cena's sort of the good stalwart, the good Superman archetype, He doesn't need all this stuff. He's going to settle it in the ring. And so now we get to Boston, SummerSlam 2006. Everybody naturally thinks Cena's just going to tear Edge apart because he had beaten him at the Royal Rumble a couple of months before. So they're in Boston, they're in Cena's hometown, and Edge is there. So they do the angle where Lita slides Edge to brass knuckles, pops Cena in the back of the head, pins Cena in his own hometown, defeats him, embarrasses Cena in front of his hometown. But considering it's Edge, and he's on a runaway train of ego at this point, we don't need this spinning title anymore. He's going to throw the title into the Long Island Sound. So he has Lita throw the belt in the Long Island Sound, which is one disrespect too many. Now, Cena is going to beat up Edge. He chases Edge all the way to the back. They chase him outside of the arena towards I don't know, is it a lake? Is it a river? I don't know what it is. But then Cena throws Edge into the river, which is great. And Edge talks about how excellent that is, and that's something that wrestling has that no other sport has, that no other form of entertainment is that they have the ability to take the show anywhere, that you can leave the arena and you can do different stuff. And he really likes that about, pro wrestling. And even though he didn't like being thrown in that polluted body of water and it made him sick, he still, he still loved the angle and thought the angle was great because the angle pushed them to have a third match. Cena Edge 3. TLC Toronto Unforgiven. And this match was my favorite match that they had for obvious reasons. I'm not really big on the TLC aspects. I'm not a huge fan of the TLC match, but it seemed perfect because Cena lost in Boston because Edge stacked the deck against him. Not just Lita, but also Lita and the brass knuckles. But in this instance, Edge still thinks he has the deck stacked against Cena, but he also kind of equalized them because The reason why, it's equal now is because Cena has the same weapons that Edge has in this situation. The only difference is Lita, right? So, and this is a level playing field. And I don't know why people think that this is somehow unfair, but it was kind of, because they tell you the story. Now, they tell you the story off screen. John Cena is afraid of heights off screen. On screen, they never went into that. That Cena, that maybe as he was walking through the house, he found out that Cena was afraid of heights and all that kind of stuff. And maybe that's why he picked the TLC match. But the on-screen character of John Cena is not afraid of anything. So that means he has to actually do stuff off the ladder. But the real life guy is afraid of heights. That's an interesting character angle that they should have introduced. But of course, you can't have weaknesses in your Superman character, can you? You can't have a kryptonite, right? But it would have been perfect because it would have gave Edge another thing to work on and give Cena something to overcome. That's the point of weaknesses in characters, is you give your character a weakness so they can overcome it and they can learn something and continue to grow. In this instance, Cena could have learned how to overcome his fear of heights, and his mandated that he overcome his fear of heights to thwart Edge and Lita and win back his championship. It would have been a much better story. But the story they told was still pretty good. But at the same time, they kind of equalized it because Edge gave tables, ladders, and chairs to himself, the guy who was the master of the match. That's, the supervillain mindset is, I created this match. I'm the master of it. You can't do it better than me. But at the same time, the foolishness of the ego of the villain is if you give the hero all of the same weapons that you have, as opposed to before, where Cena wasn't going to use brass knuckles, Edge was. So that's the unfair advantage. In this one, Edge could get put through tables, get hit with ladders and chairs and all that kind of same stuff too. So in this instance, the roles are reversed now. Edge is beloved in Toronto because that's where he's from. Cena is hated in Toronto, but Cena was hated in most places. At this point, Cena's talking about how much he loved the environment. That, I'm the Yankees in Fenway Park at this point. He always liked this dynamic. They learned it and it worked at the One Night Stand pay-per-view. So now they kind of uses it again. And they talked about the different level of storytelling that's necessary for TLC because there's a lot of violence and a lot of high spots and stuff like that. A nice little tidbit that Edge says that he was choked out actually when Cena did the FTFU on the ladder, that he put a little too much into it and actually choked him unconscious. So he doesn't really remember the certain parts of the match, but he woke up near the finish. And Cena didn't want to do the finish, but the finish was Edge's idea, where, you pick up the FU off the ladder through the tables. That was the designed finish. And it's not something Cena wanted to do, but felt like it's necessary for the finish of this story to sort of put a attack in it, to sort of end it. And that was great. I thought it was fantastic. And when you look at all this stuff together, and you do see how well they put everything together, and it was great. And Cena said, often wrestlers, ignore the biggest star in the building. And he talked about how Toronto that night, Edge stood in the ring and allowed the crowd to react to him, to soak in the reaction of his match. And Cena says, the biggest star is the audience. Let the audience react to you. And he's glad that Edge took the time to absorb that, to take that in. And I thought that was phenomenal too. I thought that was great. And they talked about how each other's old shoe, that they work so well together, that and they kind of teased that there may be one more. And I feel like this episode was about that alone, teasing that Edge's final match will likely be against John Cena. As they had already talked about Edge, how much further can he go? What more can he do? He's already nearing a natural retirement. This time it will be his choice, his decision. And if, will it be John Cena? And I think it should be. Absolutely. I think Edge, if he's going to retire anytime soon, WrestleMania 39, WrestleMania 40, it should be against John Cena. You know, I think that's be the perfect opponent for him. You know, now a lot of people were kind of like, that wasn't the end. You know, they had more matches after this. It's like, yeah, but they was just telling the 2006 story. So, which is the baseline for everything else that they did afterwards. It all begins with Edge cashing in the Money in the Bank. That kind of put their characters in a permanent Joker, Batman situation. You know, Lex Luthor or Superman situation, where nobody will ever forget that Edge screwed John Cena that one time. And that alone is like heat. And he smacked his daddy. That was another important thing. And he threw him into a river. So that's another important thing. And Cena threw Edge into the river. So that was like very awesome shit. And, you know, I kind of enjoyed that. You know, I don't remember enjoying it that much when it was going on. But looking back on it now, considering they don't do anything like this stuff anymore, they don't really invade people's homes anymore and involve people's families. They don't throw guys into bodies of water anymore. So, you know, the Money in the Bank has become a well-worn concept. Almost everybody cashes in the Money in the Bank while the champion is drowsy and down. But this was the first time they had ever done it. So all of these angles led up to it being one of the best rivalries in modern history. You know, well, especially in the last decade. It was one of the best of the last decade for sure. So what did you guys think of rivalries? This rivalry? Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.
Skin tone, so why attach yourself and piggyback the wealth you didn't earn or lack yourself? I'm telling you to own up to your own success and failures. It's a reason why these sleazy